Hello, everybody. How, Ludy? How are you doing? And hi, Professor Dhondt. This is Dr. Elsa-Sofia Morote. We are about to begin our live program called Graduate Power, in which we talk about, the advantage of having a master's degree. And we have today our professor, our alumni, Ludy Thenor. So let me before we begin, let me introduce you properly. Let's introduce Ludy. Ludy Thenor is a community economic development coordinator with the City Council. So you will tell us more about that in a few minutes. She's a double alumni of John Jay College of Criminal Justice, receiving a BA in economics and minoring in Africa Studies. And then she received a master's in economics in 2019. That was just last year, making her the first African-American woman to graduate. Wow, that's nice, with her master's in economics in John Jay College. Professor Geert is teaching, and his teachers are research focused on economics of crime and justice. He's particularly interested in the relationship between race and post-segregation era, the logic of neoliberal capitalism, and the criminal justice system. The National Institute of Justice awarded Professor Geert a grant to study the empirical relationship with the prison cycle and crime rates. Professor Dhondt will have a lot to talk because I have done some work in the same topic. Geert received a Distinguished Service Award in 2012 and Distinguished Teaching Award in 2015 at John Jay College. So that means that you are a great professor, and we are very grateful. And in the economics department. All right, with that beautiful presentation, let's begin with our guest, Ludy. Ludy, tell us about your job and how was your life after graduation.
So, okay, loaded question. So I'm a community economic development coordinator at City Council. I help with working with developers to help bring community economic development into our district, ensuring that it echoes the voice and the unique perspective of the community. We also help to support small businesses, especially now during this time. They've been hit very hard during this pandemic, whereas they didn't get the funding necessary to help the economic business thrive, and that in itself affects the community at large. And so helping give them that support to help push them forward and let them know that their voices and their businesses are being heard and represented and advocated for. And the second part of your question was to say my journey into, I guess, out of the master's program, was it? Or in the master's program?
After the master program. Is there life after the master program?
Life after the master program has been amazing. I have the privilege of being a student of John Jay twice. And so the faculty and of the economic department has been so supportive in my journeys in trying to figure out where I belong in society and to take my place into a better society. So life has been good because of the professors here at John Jay, that the support and they are always looking for opportunities for me. They are always reaching out to keep me in a loop and allow me to still be connected with my John Jay family. So Life After Master program has been amazing, to say the least.
That's very nice. That's very nice. I have also a follow-up question. Why was it so important for you to highlight that you were the first African-American graduating from economics?
So many reasons. So the first one was that I am the first out of my family to obtain my master's. I come from a family of immigrants. My mom and my family migrated here from Haiti. And for the first part of my childhood, we lived in this cramped apartment, right? So it was a 3-bedroom apartment where it was more than 10 people in the apartment. And so you could imagine the life that looked like for especially someone as young. My mom also was a widow after 3 months of marriage. So my dad's gift to society was me. That was his last gift. And so she
Wow.
stayed in that. While she was a registered nurse, she stayed there to help get the support of her family in raising me, but also to be able to go after her career. And so I was exposed to a lot of police brutality, discrimination, because I lived in a low to moderate income household, and my family members. And so it's no coincidence at all that I ended up at John Jay, and a school that was once known as the police academy, but has developed into so many different social sciences. And then finding my place in economics stemmed from Professor Holder. That was my first economic class. And the way she taught, I mean, she's a phenomenal professor, and because she teaches economic theory, but with real life application. And she was one of the first professors that I related to, because her experience, she reflected me in her experiences and her advocacy. And then it was like, wait, I think economics has given me answers that I've grappled with since I was younger. And so I get to this place where I take this economic class, and then I go on to political economy with Dr. Seda, and then they pushed me to get into the master's program. And all of a sudden, everything in my life, whether from childhood to now, but actually makes so much sense. And so then to have the support of my professors in embarking in a new journey, it's so important to highlight it, because first, I'm the first in my family, but to be the first African-American woman that they've helped to get to this place is amazing, I think.
Wow. So thank you for your feed, for your information. I mean, it's amazing. I was just wondering. I actually have half of my family is in the economics. I am engineer, but part of my family, I hear macroeconomic, microeconomics. I read book with them, you know, I sort of I become
You're in a company of great people.
So Professor Dhondt, so I think this is interesting, because usually the economics is seen as a science, but the way we teach in John Jay is we connected that with the society, with the community. And Professor Dhondt, you have been doing amazing work on all of this. Could you please tell us a little more about your work, how you use the economics to connect with justice?
Sure, thank you. And thank you, Ludy. An honor to be on here.
I think Professor froze, or I froze. Ludy, are you?
Maybe I'm not frozen. Maybe Dr. Dhondt.
Oh, okay. So we will wait a little bit. So while he's connecting, let's go for. I want to ask you, Ludy, what courses do you remember that you took in your masters? What was your favorite course? I saw there's a community course. I was checking the courses.
Community development with Professor Gordon Nimhar, which is amazing. One of the ones that I remember was actually Professor Dhondt's course, which is the economic of race. It's an amazing, that one, and also political economy with Dr. Seda. Those two classes really kind of talked about most of the topics that I lended my research to, and also my capstone class with Professor Christian. These courses are not I remember each of my classes having discussions of race and inequality and economic justices and macroeconomics and microeconomic theories and principles, and also connecting the historical component of economics and kind of tying it together in one. I think one of the readings that Professor Dhondt assigned that I never will forget is Capitalism as Racism. Slavery as Capitalism by John Clegg. And it was one of the papers that we dived into in class, and he allowed it, right? It wasn't that we would shy away from these big topics that, now that I'm out of the graduate program, we kind of stay away from because we don't want to offend or we don't want to say the wrong things. But in that class, it was a safe space. And he so masterfully kind of allowed everyone to have the opportunity to speak from different sides of the spectrum without limiting their political, personal perspectives. And he kind of nurtured that aspect of us, that maverick person that we as a students were. And it was just amazing to dive into these discussions, but with the sole purpose of educating and promoting more knowledge. So you're not leaving that class, despite of wherever you are on the spectrum, you're not leaving that class without new information to make a better decision. I think those are the classes and those are the moments in the economic department that I was so grateful for, because even after the class ended, he would always stay a little bit later and to talk about it. He would always stay later and say, you know what? I think we need to go back and highlight this aspect of it, because I think we're missing this element of it. And he would also always bring an unbiased perspective, which kind of balanced us out. And so those are just one of the classes that I feel that I'll always remember and be grateful
for. That's nice. That's very nice. Professor Dhondt, you're back.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we were hearing you. You were telling us about your experience and how you connect economics with the social, with the community and all the work you were doing.
Yes, thank you. So I came to John Jay 11 years ago, and there was two developments going on. One, in the larger world, there was the aspect of the economic crisis that was developing, the financial crisis, the Great Recession as referred to. And the second thing is that John Jay was in the process of transitioning to a senior college. And as part of this transition to a senior college and this transition to develop new majors that are justice focused and not just as part of a college of criminal justice, but as a justice-focused senior college. And one of the first majors that was developed was the new economics major. And in this context, we were able to really think about how do we develop an economics major, which is an undergraduate economics major, which is justice-focused and can speak and relate well to the students that we serve. And that the students that we serve are the vast majority of students just like Ludy, Black and Latino working class people from New York City. And so we thought about how do we teach economics that relates to their experiences. And economics you can teach basically from two different main perspectives. One is from the perspective of capital, and the other is a perspective from the working class perspective. So we chose to develop an economics undergraduate major, which focuses teaching economics from a working class perspective. And so very quickly, we developed great and produced great students, and some of them wanted to continue in master's programs or graduate school. And so we sent off 5 students to UMass Boston, but it was really, really difficult for students to leave New York City. And many students really resisted the idea. They are, as Ludy described, larger households they produce income to their households, and they can't just leave. So we decided to very early on to develop a master's program. And in that process, it took a few years for us to develop it and go through all the process. And we finally started the master's program in 2017. And Ludy was part of the very first class of incoming master students at John Jay.
That's and we are very proud of Judy. Judy's a great representative. You know, when I hear Judy talking, I say, oh, I wish I can be a little girl and take that master. It's very nice.
It's never too late.
I already went to 2 doctorates. No, I think maybe in the future. But something I'm interested, because students are texting me now questions. One of the things they want to know is, what are the requirements to be to enter to the master's program? What kind of bachelor's they choose? Because I know Ludy have a master's, a BS in economics, so obviously she was in the track. So what other bachelors are you accepting in the program, or does it matter?
Well, we have students from a variety of backgrounds of bachelor's degrees. I have a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering. And so when I went to graduate school to study economics, I did not have, other than a few courses, I did not have a formal economics background. We accepted students this year with degrees in music, and art, and we have a poet, to a student that has a PhD in mathematics. And so people come from all kinds of ways of lives, which is a great diversity that we have in our master's program of a variety of students. And so there are a few kinds of requirements, even though most economics programs are more math intensive than we are. We require some kind of basic mathematical background. So at least pre-calculus or a year of calculus we try to require, but we'll work. We're trying to revise the entry requirements, the math entry requirements. That way we can try to teach more of it in-house as well in the first year of the program. Then we also require a semester of statistics. But most of the stuff we also teach within the program itself. So we try to be very conscious of developing, for example, these kind of technical, mathematical, and statistical skills that people, in the program. And we're trying to do a better and better job every year of that. And at the same time, we also try to really focus on, right, in economics is not really, we want to teach those aspects, but we also don't want to have that's the whole focus, right? The most important focus is not about the technical aspects, but it's about, economics is really about relationships between people. And so how do those relationships become established? Both from a theoretical perspective, we try to look at those things, and also from a historical perspective. So, even though I believe Ludy, I caught a little bit, I missed some of it. I thought maybe Ludy was talking about this economic history course that I taught, which is an elective that students can take. It is also, history is an important part of many of the courses that we teach. For example, right now, I was hearing feedback from a course that Professor Holder is teaching right now. She's teaching a political economy agenda class in the master's program. And she is, the class is, the subtitle of the course is Centering Black Women. And so she teaches this course also from a historical perspective.
That's very nice. So Ludy, you were talking about that your final work, the master's was a research. I think you mentioned that, or you were doing a research in the master program. Could you tell us a little more about that? What do you do to conclude the master? What was your last work?
So in my capstone class, I focus on the impacts of redlining, especially in low to moderate income communities. So many times they were underrepresented in many different ways, and for a while there was systematic racist discrimination that happened to Black, African Americans and other minorities in different communities that was systematically in play. And so when we look at discrimination, when we look at racism, when we look at all the things that we experience in society, there are systematic approaches that sometimes are overlooked, such as redlining. And so for my capstone class, I focus on redlining and its impacts on low to moderate income households, specifically in education, just like we are more segregated now than we're just as segregated now as civil rights days. And so things of that sort was really it's everything that I experienced, right? My own schooling were not as diverse. I moved into my community, and as I was moving in, many people were leaving, right? And so then it's like, what is the economic perspective on this? How can I kind of marry this idea that I know races exist, but how does it exist, and in what ways can I prove that it exists? It's not just enough to say I was discriminated against, because when you go into different circles, it may not be it, they may have a different perspective that may be different from your experiences. And so when I started to think about those concepts, I said, well, what's systematic that's provable? And one of the things that I came across was redlining. And so Professor Christian Parenti was so helpful in helping me fine tune this big idea into what turned out to be a 40-page paper. But it felt like a labor. It felt like a labor of love, because it incorporated everything that I've ever experienced, but with proven facts. And that's what I ended my master's in, or on
That's
that.
very interesting. Now,
Yeah,
what, for people who are not familiar, what is redlining? What is redlining?
Well,
it seems like you've just put a red line in something, or what is redlining?
Sorry, your signal broke up a little.
Oh yeah, what is redlining?
Well, redlining is what happened when many of our, sorry, can you see me?
Yeah.
Oh.
We can see you and hear you.
My signal, I can't see you.
Yeah, but we are seeing you.
Okay. What's going on?
But Ludy, we are seeing you perfectly well.
You're seeing, oh, I can't see you at all.
Yeah, but you tell us and you will fix it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, redlining is what happened in banks in the US, where they were denied mortgages to people, mostly people of color, in urban areas, preventing them from buying a home in a certain neighborhood or getting a loan to renovate their homes. And so what would happen is a collective of things where banks would systematically deny these people in urban neighborhoods. And then you had brokers and real estate agents kind of talking to the people in the neighborhood. So there were people that were trying to move into neighborhoods, middle class neighborhoods, such as Rosedale and Queens, or different parts of the world, right? And they were trying to move into this neighborhood, of course, to get a better life, right? And so what would happen is you would find people that would get denied these loans, while there were their counterparts that were getting these same loans. They had the same credit score, they had the same income, and they were not being able to get that same opportunity. And then when they did get the opportunity to then move into the neighborhood, you had people leaving, right? And so then it was this collective effort of two opposing two opposing realities, one trying to get a better life and fulfill this American dream, and then the other out of fear saying, well, oh my goodness, if these people come into my neighborhood, what would happen to my home, the value of my home? What would happen to this neighborhood that I've worked so hard to build, right? And out of fear, they left, right? But what happened is it created a divide, where every time a community would be diversified, you would find that eventually it would not be like that. And then you look at the populations of schools. In certain low to moderate income schools, it's very rare to see diverse people in your school systems, unless you're in, maybe a private school or maybe a charter school, and maybe, but systematically, banks and other mortgage lenders commonly rejected loans from credit-worthy borrowers based strictly on race or where they lived. And then you had the bank maps, where divided neighborhoods into different colors, and the coloring of the neighborhood was a grade given to that neighborhood. A's to D's, and the D neighborhood was basically a bad neighborhood, and an A, just just as a would represent, which is a really good neighborhood. And so I showed that how redlining systematically affects our communities, our resources, businesses left. When we talk about economics, sustainability, you kind of have to include redlining, and it's the historical approach to trying to figure out what happens systematically in neighborhoods, and why there's lack of resources, why there are discrimination, why there's lack of funding and crimes and etc.
Thank you, Ludy. I think that's very interesting. I can see your passion, and I can see your professor very proud of hearing you. I can see his smile of proudness. So we have some few minutes left, unless the students here are texting me some questions. So one of the questions will be like two questions, one for Ludy and one for Professor Geert. For Ludy, the question would be, what would be your advice for somebody who is about to graduate, for students who are currently in the master program? And for Professor Geert, the question is, what would be your advice for students who are about to enter to the program? So it's two different questions. One is for about to enter to the program, who are thinking to go to the masters, and for Ludy, for people who are in the masters already, so they are already committed. What will be expected for them? So let's begin with our Professor Geert.
So the question is about what advice I would have for people about
prospectives. Yeah, for prospective students.
Okay. So, well, when I speak with prospective students, it really depends on the student I'm talking with. And so for some students, I will look at their records, I will talk about their interest, and I will tell them, we would really like to have you, but I think there are better fits for programs other places. For some students, I say, we really like to have you. You'll be a fantastic fit, I think. You're lacking math skills, so you should really take this calculus class this summer or something like that. For other students, I would recommend reading particular kind of books depending on their interest or articles. So it really depends on the particular student I'm talking with. I don't really have any kind of general advice, maybe with except as my game theory professor, Herb Gintis, his advice to students was don't eat yellow snow, but that's
what's that? Okay, what that means? First we have the red line, now we have the yellow snow. Thank you very much. So yeah, this is, I mean, I think a lot of people will be excited to be in these masters with all the things that we're learning and how much you can do with that. So Ludy, what would be your advice for students who are already in the masters?
My advice to anyone that is in your master's is to enjoy it. It's academia, so of course there are papers and assignments and tests and finals and a lot of research, yes, but and then there's always a lot going on, right? It's life. And I mean, hear my heart's intent of this. You're not alone in your attempts of trying to figure out the best outcome for you and your loved ones. At the same time, how do we get to a place of balancing it? Even the most successful person tries to find out this balance, right? And so it's just to change your perspective in your mind, right? Consider things that are good, that brings you joy, that peace, things that are prosperous, things that inspire you, because it's in that place where you'll begin to imagine and have the courage to adjust and pivot any negative situations. And sometimes it's better to imagine the outcome than to negotiate with harsh realities of the present, because most times we end up compromising and losing sight about the initial why that you began. So I would say that to be patient with your journey, you're in process. To always remember your why. Some of us are embarking on things that no one has ever thought of. And so no, many people will not understand you, but no, you cannot quit, right? The world needs, the academia and the world needs people who will keep fighting through rainy days, through hard days, until they see a sunshine and until their ideas and inventions and discoveries come to fruition. And so it is so important for you to be here. You are a scholar that is embarking on something that is going to be groundbreaking. So the race is not given to the swift, but those that endure to the end. So your task and your only alternative is just to keep going.
Thank you very much, Ludy. You make us very proud. I would like to speak like you, like saying all these beautiful things.
Well, I really appreciate that, and
Thank you very much.
I was helped by the great professors of the economic department,
Yeah.
and I
And
can't
there's some
thank them enough.
poetry there also. I can see some poetry. You have to. That's very nice.
I'll take that too.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Dhondt, for being here. And that's, thank you. And let's say goodbye to everybody. And so we will be excited. And please go to the website, check the Masters in Arts and Economics. It's a great Masters, and we have a great professors and alumni.
Thank you so much for having this, and thank you, Dr. Dhondt, for joining.